Stop explaining to people who don't want to understand. One of the hardest lessons in life is realizing that not everybody cares about the truth. Some people don't want clarity, they want control. And when you're dealing with narcissists, you'll wear yourself out trying to explain your heart to somebody who already made up their mind about you. They don't argue to learn, they argue to win. That's the game. And the more you keep explaining, the more you're feeding the very thing they thrive on: conflict, chaos, and your frustration. You've got to reach a place in your spirit where you stop chasing validation from people who aren't even interested in seeing your side. That's wasted energy, and wasted energy will keep you stuck in cycles of emotional exhaustion. You can't water concrete and expect flowers. Some hearts are hardened, some ears are closed, and you'll never soften them with explanation alone. You've got to recognize when you're talking to someone who is unwilling to listen. The need to always defend yourself keeps you on trial in their court. But here's the truth: you don't owe everybody an explanation. Sometimes your peace is worth more than proving you're right. Have you ever noticed that the louder you explain, the quieter they get? That's because they're not listening. They're calculating. They're looking for new ways to twist your words, not understand them. That's why you have to preserve your voice. Use it wisely. Don't cast your pearls before people who are just going to trample on them. Protect the value of your words by not wasting them where they won't be honored. It's better to walk away misunderstood than to stay engaged and lose yourself in endless debates that go nowhere. Misunderstood and peaceful beats understood and broken any day. The power is not in convincing them. The power is in being confident in what you know to be true. You don't need their agreement to validate your reality. When you finally stop explaining, something shifts inside you. You stop living to prove, and you start living to move forward. That's where growth begins. Narcissists don't change because of arguments. They change when they lose access to your energy. That's the real lesson. So the moment you stop explaining, you take back control. You stop playing by their rules and you start living by your peace. Some people will never admit when they're wrong. Some people will never acknowledge your side. But that's not your battle anymore. You've got to accept that their blindness isn't your failure. Their refusal isn't your weakness. That's just who they are, and your job is to protect who you are. The moment you realize you don't need to explain yourself to everyone is the moment you free yourself from their grip. That's when your power truly returns. Protect your peace over winning an argument. Every time you get caught up in trying to win an argument with somebody who doesn't even value your peace, you're losing before it even starts. You've got to ask yourself, is my peace worth this fight? Narcissists bait you with conflict. They want to drag you into a ring you don't belong in, because the moment you swing back, you've already given them what they wanted: your energy, your focus, your attention. Protecting your peace means learning to walk away even when you could have stayed and won the debate, because not every victory is worth the price of your sanity. Sometimes silence isn't weakness, it's strength. Choosing not to argue is choosing your future over their drama. When you live for arguments, you stay stuck in circles. But when you live for peace, you move forward in straight lines. Peace has direction. Arguments keep you spinning. A narcissist doesn't want closure, they want control. They don't want understanding, they want domination. That's why you've got to vow you peace more than the satisfaction of winning. Your peace is priceless. Don't trade it for the cheap thrill of saying, "I told you so." That one moment of victory can cost you hours, days, even weeks of peace. Protecting your peace means knowing when to leave a conversation unfinished. It means letting some people believe their lies because you know the truth will outlive them. You don't need to scream, shout, or prove a thing when God has already seen what's in your heart. Peace is knowing you're covered without ever having to clap back. Narcissists only see your side. When silence shows them you're no longer willing to wrestle in their mud. That's when the game ends for them. But you've got to practice discipline. Because your first instinct is to defend, to fight, to prove. But discipline teaches you that protecting peace is better than protecting pride. Pride says, I have to win this argument. Peace says, I have nothing to prove. The person who protects their peace always wins in the long run. Because peace gives you clarity, and clarity gives you power. Every time you choose peace over conflict, you're building strength. You're showing that your life isn't controlled by somebody else's dysfunction. And the beautiful thing about peace is this. Once you start protecting it, you'll never let anyone steal it from you again. Silence speaks louder than repetition. Sometimes the most powerful response you can give is none at all. Narcissists feed on words. They thrive when you keep repeating yourself, trying to explain, trying to defend, trying to get them to see reason. But silence starves them. Silence is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's choosing to rise above the trap instead of falling into it. Silence shows strength because it proves you don't need to beg for understanding. You already have it within yourself. Repetition wears you out, not them. They enjoy watching you spin your wheels, going over the same points again and again while they pretend not to understand. That's the trap. The more you repeat yourself, the less power your words carry. But the moment you go quiet, suddenly they notice. Suddenly the energy shifts. Narcissists aren't expecting silence. They expect you to fight, to plead, to explain, to beg. That's why your silence shocks them more than any speech ever could. Silence doesn't mean agreement. Silence doesn't mean surrender. Silence means, I won't waste another drop of my spirit trying to convince somebody who's committed to misunderstanding me. Your silence is louder than any argument because it says, I value myself too much to stay in this cycle. That message can't be twisted, can't be debated, can't be denied. When you're silent, you give God room to speak for you. You stop fighting battles with your voice and let your actions and your peace do the talking. Silence removes fuel from their fire. Without your reaction, there's no drama. Without your repetition, there's no stage for them to perform on. You'll notice that silence often brings clarity faster than words. When you stop repeating yourself, you finally hear your own heart instead of their noise. Silence is not about ignoring. It's about elevating. You rise above the petty arguments, and you protect the precious energy that repetition drains out of you. Some people will only start to notice your worth once your silence removes the sound of your presence. That's when it hits them. They can't play their game anymore. Silence is not a gap, it's a statement. It says, I'm no longer participating in this circus. Narcissists may never admit you're right, but your silence will make them feel the weight of your absence louder than any words could. At the end of the day, silence protects you more than repetition ever will. Because silence carries a dignity that arguments can never touch. Show them through actions, not pleading. The biggest mistake you can make is thinking words alone will change somebody who doesn't want to change. Narcissists don't believe your words. They manipulate them, twist them, and throw them back at you. But actions are harder to argue with. Actions are undeniable. That's why the only way they'll ever see your side is when you stop pleading and start showing. You don't need to beg somebody to treat you right. You don't need to plead for respect. Show them through your actions that you won't stay where honor is missing. When you walk away from disrespect, you're showing them something your words could never prove. You value yourself. Narcissists don't listen to explanations, but they notice when their usual tactics no longer work. When you stop reacting the same way, they see the change. You don't have to argue about your worth. You show it in the way you carry yourself, in the way you refuse to stay in environments that dim your light. Words say, I deserve better. Actions say, I won't settle. Actions echo louder than any speech ever could. The real power isn't in proving your point, it's in proving your strength through movement. Sometimes the most powerful statement is walking away. Narcissists thrive on you staying in the same position while arguing with them. But when you act, when you grow, when you succeed without them, suddenly the picture changes. They may never admit it, but your actions show them more truth than your pleading ever did, because actions are proof. Actions are reality. You don't need to explain your growth, just grow. You don't need to explain your healing, just heal. You don't need to explain your boundaries, just keep them. Every action you take toward bettering yourself speaks volumes. It says, I don't have time for games, I'm building something real. Narcissists don't respect your words, but they're forced to respect your actions because actions create consequences they can't escape. Instead of pleading, prove through your living. Let your life be the testimony they can't twist or deny. At some point they'll see your side, not because you argued it, but because your actions painted a picture too clear to ignore. Stand firm in who you are when you're dealing with narcissists. They'll do everything in their power to shake your identity. They'll question your worth, twist your truth, and try to make you doubt what you know deep down. That's why you've got to stand firm in who you are. Standing firm means you don't let somebody's opinion change your foundation. You know who you are, you know what you carry, and you don't need their agreement to validate it. Narcissists are experts at gaslighting. They'll make you question reality. They'll tell you the sky is green and argue it until you start wondering if maybe you're wrong. That's why it's so important to stay grounded in what you know. You don't need to argue with them about the truth. You just need to keep walking in it. Your consistency will outlast their manipulation. Standing firm isn't about fighting harder, it's about refusing to move when lies come against you. It's choosing to be rooted in truth even when they're throwing storms your way. Think of a tree in the middle of a storm. The winds come, the rain beats down, but the tree stays standing because its roots go deep. That's what you've got to be like, rooted in your truth so deep that their chaos can't uproot you. When you're firm in your identity, their words lose power. They can't convince you you're worthless when you know you're valuable. They can't make you doubt your purpose when you're already living it. Narcissists want you unstable. They want you second, guessing yourself. But when you stay solid, it frustrates them because they can't control someone who won't move. Your power is in your firmness. They can argue, they can lie, they can twist, but they can't shake somebody who's anchored in truth. Standing firm is also about boundaries. It's saying, this is who I am, this is what I will accept, and this is what I won't. Boundaries are how you protect your identity. When you stop bending to please people who will never appreciate you, you finally discover peace. You find strength in saying, I'm enough as I am, and I don't need to shrink to fit your comfort. Don't let anybody who refuses to grow make you question your growth. Don't let someone who's committed to lies make you doubt your truth. The more you stand firm, the more their tactics lose effectiveness. Because manipulation only works on the unsteady. When you're unshakable, they're powerless. Standing firm is not just for them, it's for you. It reminds you of your worth, it keeps you aligned with your purpose, and it gives you peace in knowing you don't have to be swayed by every voice. And when you stand firm, you inspire others around you to do the same. You become proof that nobody can shake a person who knows exactly who they are. Distance reveals more than words ever will. Words can be debated, twisted, ignored. But distance speaks for itself. Sometimes the only way a narcissist will see your side is when they feel the absence of your presence. You can talk until you're blue in the face, but nothing will teach them like distance. Because distance removes the supply they feed on, your energy, your attention, your reactions. The silence of distance hits differently. It makes them confront the reality that they can't keep playing their games because the stage is gone. Distance is a teacher. It teaches them that you're not accessible for chaos anymore. It teaches them that you value yourself too much to stay in the same cycle. When you create distance, you shift the power. They can no longer pull your strings because you're not in reach, and here's the truth, they notice it. Even if they act like they don't care, they feel the space. They feel the loss of control. Distance is not punishment, it's protection. It's protecting your heart, your mind, your peace from being drained by toxic games. Narcissists rarely realize the damage they cause until distance forces them to see what they've lost. Your presence made them comfortable. Your absence makes them uncomfortable. Don't underestimate how powerful your absence can be. Sometimes your absence says, "I won't play this game anymore," louder than any speech ever could. Distance is clarity. It helps you see them for who they are, and it helps them see what life looks like without access to you. You'll find strength in stepping back, because distance gives you perspective, and perspective heals what proximity blinded you to. They may try to chase, manipulate, or guilt you back into closeness, but you've got to remember why you created the distance in the first place. Distance doesn't mean hate. It means love for yourself. It means you chose freedom over dysfunction, and sometimes distance is the only language they'll understand. Because while they ignore your words, they can't ignore your absence. Distance reveals truths no argument ever could. It shows them your worth by reminding them they no longer have easy access to it. Self-respect commands more than explanation. You'll never have to beg someone to see your side when you carry yourself with self-respect. Because self-respect commands attention in ways explanations never can. Narcissists may not value your words, but they can't deny your posture. When you respect yourself, it shows in the way you walk, talk, and respond. Self-respect says, "I don't have to explain myself to be understood." It says, "I know my value, even if you pretend not to." Explanations can be ignored, but self-respect demands acknowledgement. It forces people to see you differently because you see yourself differently. Narcissists lose their grip when they realize they can't manipulate someone who respects themselves too much to fall for the games. Self-respect sets the tone. It tells people how to treat you without you saying a word. You don't have to argue about your worth when your self-respect already proves it. You don't have to fight for validation when your self-respect already affirms it. Narcissists feed on weakness, but self-respect makes you untouchable. They can't handle someone who refuses to compromise their dignity. Every time you choose self-respect, you choose freedom, you choose peace, you choose power. When you respect yourself, you stop settling for less. You stop tolerating disrespect. You stop explaining your boundaries because you simply live them. Self-respect is louder than explanations. It shows them, "I don't need to convince you. I don't need your agreement. I know who I am." And here's the beauty. When you live with self-respect, others around you start to notice. You set an example for people who have been silent too long. Self-respect doesn't just change how they see you. It changes how you see yourself. It gives you confidence that no manipulation can shake. Explanations fade, but self-respect lasts, because it's not something you say. It's something you embody. And when you carry yourself with that kind of respect, people can ignore your words, but they can't ignore your presence. God will defend you better than your mouth can. One of the hardest things to accept is that you don't have to fight every battle with your own voice. There are some battles where your best weapon is silence, because God fights better than your mouth ever could. Narcissists live for arguments, but arguments aren't where truth is revealed. Truth always comes out in time, and God has a way of exposing lies without you lifting a finger. You don't have to keep defending yourself to people who are determined not to believe you. When God is on your side, He'll make sure the truth shines through eventually. Sometimes the best way to win is to step back and let God do what you can't. Your words might fall flat, but His justice never fails. Narcissists might try to paint you in the wrong light, but God has a way of turning tables and revealing what was hidden in the dark. The moment you stop fighting for yourself and start trusting God to defend you, that's when you find peace. God doesn't need your pleading to prove your worth. He already declared it. He already called you chosen, loved, valuable. No lie can erase that truth. When you let God defend you, you stop draining yourself in battles that were never yours to begin with. You stop wasting energy trying to convince people who refuse to listen. Sometimes the most powerful testimony isn't in what you say. It's in how God backs you up without you needing to fight. Your silence is not surrender, it's trust. It's saying, I know who holds my truth, and it's not you. Narcissists may win arguments, but they can't win against God's justice. Time always reveals character, and God always exposes what needs to be seen. Your job isn't to fight every critic. Your job is to live in alignment with truth and let God handle the rest. Every time you try to defend yourself in your own strength, you wear out. But every time you let God defend you, you rest. Narcissists can ignore your side of the story, but they can't ignore the way God's hand works in your life. That's a defense they can't argue with. At the end of the day, the only way they'll ever see your side is when God Himself reveals it. And when He does, no lie will be able to stand against it. Family, let me tell you something. When you deal with narcissists, you'll waste years trying to get them to see your side, but the truth is, they may never admit it, they may never validate it, and they may never give you the closure you think you need. But here's the good news, you don't need them to. The only way they'll ever truly see your side is not through arguments, not through pleading, not through endless explanations. It's through the strength you show in silence, in distance, in boundaries, in self-respect, and in the way you let God fight battles you don't need to fight. That's where the shift happens. You've got to stop giving away your energy to people who only twist it. Stop explaining to ears that don't want to hear. Stop lowering your standards just to be understood. Protect your peace, hold your ground, and trust that time and truth will do what words never could. Because at the end of the day, your life will speak louder than any argument. Your growth will be louder than their lies. Your peace will be louder than their chaos. And your silence will be louder than all the explanations they refused to hear. So walk away with your head high, live with dignity, stand firm in your truth, because when you do that, one day, even if they never admit it out loud, they'll see it, they'll know, and they'll realize that your side was the truth all along. And when that moment comes, you won't even care anymore, because by then, you'll be too busy living free, living healed, and living the life you were always meant to live. That's the power of walking in truth without waiting for their validation. That's how you win. That's how you rise. And that's how you finally take back your life.